Objections? I want to thank everybody from the public who testified. And we will now continue on to our agenda item, Maui County Water Use and Development Plan Update, Discussion and Action, and Including. So item A, which might clarify some things for the public a little bit, is review of the Maui County Board of Water Supply chronology of Board of Water Supply advisory work, including the Board of Water Supply's comments to Director Jeff Pearson in a letter dated January 22nd, 2019, to be transmitted to the Maui County Council relating to the Water Use and Development Plan. So please see the links, chronology of document, and Board of Water Supply comments of January 22nd. So I don't want to go into too much overview of the chronology since we did do that at the last meeting, and most folks who are on this meeting were either there in person at the time or were at the meeting. But just to clarify, because I think there's a little confusion in the community, basically how this process happened with the Water Use Development Plan, and as far as the board goes, and I know Ava's going to describe things in a little more detail, but we started looking at the plan. If you look at the chronology document, and I apologize, I'm going to go to that right now. So between June 15th, 2017 and May 17, 2018 is when Ava Blumenstein and the Department of Water Supply presented the draft water use and development plan to the board. And so just because of how, water board terms work, there are only 3 of us who were there for the entire time, and that would have been Joseph Aquino, Zoli. Oh, no, I'm sorry, not Joseph. I apologize. Joseph came on with Dean. It was Norm, Zoli, and myself. And so we had a very extensive presentation over a 1-year period of all aspects of the plan as it was at that time. And then Dean and Joseph joined the board in 2018, got to see some of the presentations, and then that was the point at which we had to basically review and give our comments about the plan. And one of the things we were required to do as a board was to go out to the community. So one of the things I just wanted to clarify, since it has been brought up about going out to haiku, etc. We had a 180-day clock, and there was a little either miscommunication, misunderstanding, confusion when we were determining how to sort of proceed on that clock. We originally were under the impression that we didn't have to go out to the community. And if you look at the chronology, you can look at the excerpts of the minutes. And so we probably should have done is started moving in July of 2018, but we didn't. We thought that the presentations to the board that were public, where testimony was allowed, was adequate to meet the regulations. But we learned that it wasn't. So basically in the fall, we suddenly were under a very tight time frame in terms of going out to the community, getting input, and then basically digesting what the community said and responding to the draft plan. So part of what happened was, and of course you have to give notice. You can't just go out, oh, we have to go to Hana, just go to Hana. We couldn't do that. So we ended up, and you'll see again, if the public wants to look at the agenda link to the chronology, we ended up going out to public hearings starting November 29th, 2018 in Hana. And then the following week, we went to Lahaina, Kihei, Pukalani, Wailuku. So, as far as going out to haiku and paia, that maybe should have been done. We were under a very tight time frame trying to, meet the needs of the community. So it was sort of determined that that was the best way to connect with as many people as possible. Some of those meetings were extremely well attended, others not so much. If I remember correctly, Lahaina was lots and lots of people. Kihei, there was hardly anybody. And there was a discussion about whether certainly we could have always done better outreach, but that's where we were at. The other thing to understand was it wasn't just going out to the community and listening. It was actually then taking all that information and figuring out what that meant in terms of this document. Can somebody mute their mic? I hear a feedback. So I just wanted to also refer to the letter that we did submit to Director Pearson on January 22nd. And one thing to clarify is that if you look at the letter, we did not approve the water use and development plan. We made comments and we raised concerns. And because we had an extremely short timeline, again, we were actually doing this over Christmas. We had a meeting on December 13. And again, if you look at the chronology and the excerpts of the minutes, you will see there was discussion about haiku, about private purveyors, about some other issues. And we struggled to figure out, given that we had to submit in January our comment by charter regulation within this 180-day time frame, we created this grid that's attached to the letter where we consolidated the issues that we thought were most important to the community. And you'll see there's 3 columns on the grid. And we described the issues. And then there was the 2 other columns, Department of Water Supply response / comment, and then WUDP source. That's where Department of Water Supply responded to our concerns. Now, I'm sorry, my mouth is dry. We were not ever able to respond to those responses because we just didn't have the time. So basically what we did was we submitted this letter with the hopes, and if you look at the letter, again, you can see how we worded it, but with the hopes that the council would look at our comments, would look at the response from the department and kind of make its own conclusions, because we were under the impression that it was just kind of done for us. So that's what we did as of January 22nd. I'm just trying to see if there's anything else. So we did ask in our letter, again, I really strongly recommend that everybody look at our letter. We said the board now conveys its feedback and advice on the Maui Island Draft Water Use Development Plan. The board further advises that in its submission to the Maui County Council, the department either include the attached table with issues and responses on the WUDP or convey its availability for review by the council. The board feels strongly that the Maui County Council's understanding of the issues reviewed to date will enhance the council's deliberation on the plan. We further said, should the department require any clarification, please do not hesitate to discuss questions with the board. Please accept the board's comments on the draft Island Water Use and Development Plan and related community concerns. Again, the board requests that the department convey these identified issues and responses to the Maui County Council. So I hope that helps some of the testifiers and the community understand kind of better what this process was. And then, you know, anyway, if there's anybody on the board, on our board, who wants to comment, who was at the process, who wants to comment about it, or if anybody would like to ask questions about it who wasn't there. I see Dean. Go ahead, Dean.
Hi, Shay. Thank you. It's painful to hear concerned citizens talk about not being able to have a voice in the process. I empathize with them. I feel for them. But we had a meeting on October 18th, Shay, and there was a lot of discussion. I was there. There was a lot of discussion about how we get to the community. That was a primary concern. In fact, I remember you bringing up you urging the department to make the document available online. But we wrestled with how do we go about the community, and we talked about having 5 meetings. At one point, I think we talked about 10 meetings. We talked about going to every community plan district. That was my input. But we ultimately decided that as 9 volunteers reviewing a 1,000+ page document, that we settled on 5 general locations. And you were part of that discussion. I mean, I don't remember hearing, a lot of pushback against having more community location meetings. It pains me to hear people say that they didn't have a chance. I think the department and the board did as best a job as we could. And
So,
I guess that's
Edine,
my question. My question is, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say, I think you're misunderstanding what I'm saying. I think we absolutely did our 100% best. And obviously we know, and you were there, we drove out, and we also had to have a quorum, right? So we had to have,
Yep.
everybody had to go out to Hana, everybody had to go out to Lahaina, right? And I think one thing that, I think a lot of us at the time were kind of like, oh my gosh, 2 weeks before Christmas, we all have to run out and do all this, and we don't have much time. But I also think that, if I remember, it was really actually a really good experience because we learned a lot from the community. And, I just found my old file. I have pages and pages of notes. I know everybody took pages and pages of notes. So I'm not at all saying that we did not make maximum effort. I absolutely think we did. I think, and one of the things that I hope the community understands, and I'm not placing blame because these things happen, but and if you look at the minutes, you'll see there was some kind of miscommunication in the summer of last year, or 2 years ago, where we were under the impression at first that we didn't need to go out to the community. And then sometime in, like you said, the October meeting, when we had already lost 3 months, right? Then we found out we did, and we also found out that we had to, of course, give all this notice in the newspaper, and we were struggling in trying to figure out how do we meet the Sunshine Law requirements, how do we actually, and how do we even make sure that the community understands what the specific meeting is about so that we can get the best possible input, right? Because, of course, with any public meeting, people talk about all kinds of stuff. So I'm not at all saying that we didn't do a good job or do our best.
Okay.
I'm just saying.
So my question to you as chair, and this is where I guess I'm seeking clarification, is because I said this in the last meeting, and I don't think we had quorum, and I apologize for that, but this water use development plan is a living document. It's gone through a review process. It started with Ava and the department, and then they've gone to the community. They've had tons of meetings, many public meetings. They've tried their best. I know specifically she's tried to engage people as much as she possibly can. And anybody that wanted to engage with her, she was more than willing to assist. And so my question is, I'm a board member. I believe in the process. We had it. It's gone to the council. That document is in the council's hands. And there's nothing that precludes any of us individually as board members, and there's nothing that precludes anybody that testified today from testifying to the county council where that document lives now. That document lives at the county council. And if we back the process up, I don't believe I'm happy that we're having the discussion, but at some point we've got to buy into the process. This document will never be adopted if it keeps being bounced around. And again, I want to ask specifically what your objective is today and why we're doing this on the agenda. Do you want to bring it back to for additional meetings in our board?
So, I think we should sort of go a little further before we get to that, but to respond to you just sort of as briefly as possible. I see Tony wants to speak, but so we, and Mimi can probably speak to this better as far as, interpreting what our role is, but we were supposed to have an advisory role in this document. And when we submitted our comments, as you know, we were under the gun and we had to do our best with what we had. We did not have time for a back and forth. So where our letter, where we got the responses from Ava, we did not have time to look at them, and because the clock had run out, right? also, in terms of advisory, we were not, and this again is in the chronology, after January 22nd, we were never provided directly from the water department about any progress that the report had made. So we were not ever given the final version in March. That was never we never had a call from Jeff Pearson or from Ava saying, oh, here's the final document for your review. We were never shown exactly where our comments were integrated. And then most recently with the addendum, we were never. And I do have to state that, specifically to your statement that we can testify individually to the council, I was actually, Kelly King's assistant reached out to me before the last water infrastructure transportation meeting to say, are you going to testify? They are now, they're going to vote on the water use development plan. And so two things. One, I said, no, I'm not going to testify because my board has made it clear that they want us to speak as one voice. Those were your words, stated several times. So I did not want to testify and, get people upset on the board. Secondly, I actually, even if I was comfortable with it, I don't know what I would have testified about because I had not had time to review those documents. So I could have testified and just said, we have our January 22 letter, that's the last thing. But that's all I could testify about. So the other, we can talk about this later, but it specifically states in the addendum that we have approved the water use development plan without revisions, which is simply not true. So what I would like at the very least is accuracy, documentation, and the fact that people understand exactly what our input was.
I appreciate those comments, and I want to make two more comments, and I don't want to take up everybody else's time, but I believe, one, that yes, we had a 180-day timeline. It's the law. We had to follow the law.
Right.
And if there's a problem with the law, that's a council issue. We complied with the law. And secondly, as far as, and I would absolutely, and we were advisory capacity, so we provided, and I think you specifically, I remember you working on the matrix and doing a really good job of documenting a lot of very minute concerns that came up from the community, and I applaud you for that. But we were an advisory body. We're not authors. We're not entitled to. I never saw it that way. We were advisory. We provided our comments to them, and they responded, and they've adjusted. Most of the comments that they said were almost across the board with, that's already been addressed in the document here, in a lot of instances, maybe not all of them. But again, and I just want to circle back. Anybody on this board can testify as an individual. The problem becomes when, at that time, it was appearing in front of, and I believe it was even an issue with Corp Council, was appearing in front of a council as in a chair capacity without the board's approval. So just to be clear, I have no problems with you testifying as an individual. It's just when the problem becomes acting as chair representing the board, just to clarify. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Dean. Tony, did you want to speak?
Yeah, I did. So I had a couple questions. So Dean just said that you guys had 180 days. That was the law. But the draft just sat for a while. I mean, it sat for over a year. So, I mean, over 1/3 of this board, this sitting board right now, has not been able to fully discuss the water use development plan. And, we just simply because we weren't there. So from 2018 or 2017 when this started to 2020, that's 3 years. There's a lot that has changed in that 3 years. So I would like to get a chance to discuss this water use development plan. And I don't believe that all the questions that the board had asked was answered, and I truly believe that we need more community input. Obviously, people are chiming in when we're having this Zoom meeting, this Blue Jeans meeting, and not every the kupuna no they can't do this. They don't know how to call in and testify, from their homes or whatever's. So I do believe that we need more time. I think I understand the work you guys did, Dean. You guys did a lot of work in a little bit of time, but just to be fair, because there are so many community concerns, I would like to review the water, the WUDP a little bit further. Like I said, more than one third of this board has wasn't even on the board when this came up. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Actually, I want to ask Mimi, can you kind of explain the law to us in terms of that 180 days and the advisory? You had a chance to look at that, correct?
Yeah, sure. So Maui County Code 14, Chapter 14-02 has to do with the water use and development plan that you folks are talking about. And it follows a certain procedure. And I can give you like a very quick summary about how that process is supposed to work. So it is required that the department shall update the plan, then send to CWRM. It looks like within 5 years from the date of any update of the plan. It's supposed to be done every 5 years. So there's been some time limit, restrictions here that probably haven't been followed to a T under the code. But essentially what the department proposes is a plan update and sends that simultaneously to CWRM and the Board of Water Supply. Then the Board of Water Supply, once it receives that proposed plan, has 180 days to review the plan. And in that review process, the Board of Water Supply is supposed to have public hearings and then make findings and recommendations after those public hearings, and then transmit those findings and recommendations back to the Department of Water Supply. Then the Department of Water Supply is to review what was submitted by the Board of Water Supply, and then update the plan if necessary. So it's within the discretion of the director of the Board of Water Supply or the Department of Water whether or not to adopt the findings and recommendations made by the department or by the Board of Water Supply. Then that gets transmitted within 60 days to the council. Then the council has 180 days to pass the proposed update after it's been vetted in how I described. So the council's procedures would then kick in, and it goes to the water committee. It spends its time in the water committee. There are public hearings about it. They make their recommendations as to what that ordinance is going to look like, and then transmit it to council. Then it has 2 readings at council. So that is the process that's supposed to occur every 5 years. And then once the council passes its ordinance, it then sends that to CWRM. And that one of the things that I think that's important is, what is the purpose of this plan? Because I think one of the testifiers wanted to know whether the county had its own plan. And if you look at 1402-030, the plan's to be used in 2 ways. One is in approving or recommending to other agencies the use or commitment of water resources in the county. And then also in using public funds to develop water resources to meet existing or projected future demands on the public water system as set forth in the plan. So the director can chime in if he likes, if I'm incorrect, but the way I read this, it sounds like the plan gets sent to CWRM to be developed into the state water plan, but that this plan should also be used internally by the county to make recommendations based on what I just read. The other thing that's important is that there is a provision in this chapter that calls for amendments to the plan. So in other words, what it says is that if there is an amendment to the plan that's proposed either by council, by the director, or any agent, then that proposed amendment to the plan can be referred to the Board of Water Supply for its review and recommendation. So rather than have to follow those 5 years, there could be an amendment, and then it follows that procedure. Once you folks get it, then it goes through the 180-day recommended process back to the director for 60 days, then on to council, the water committee, and then council. So that's basically the way that this thing gets developed.
Thank you, Mimi. And I guess, and we're going to have a presentation from Eva about sort of what happened after we submitted our letter. But, you know, the issue to me is, and obviously other people may interpret it differently, but our role, one of our primary roles, my understanding was to, you know, collect input from the community and advise based on that input. And, you know, like Dean said, we did an enormous amount of work. We worked really hard. We actually, you know, we struggled because we had so much information that we had to digest and figure out what to do with. And in terms of that deadline, yes, we had to follow the law. So we did what we had to do per law, but in our advisory capacity, I think that it would have, and in the spirit of the law, that it would have made a lot of sense for the department, especially knowing, and you know, there was, Director Pearson actually was not there. He joined the department in January, so he did not actually, he did not actually personally know all the work that we went to do all this, but he did get, the letter was to him, right? But I think, you know, out of respect for our work, it would have made perfect sense to let us know that the March, just like we're told all the time, oh, we have an annual report from the Department of Water Supply. We don't approve that report or anything, but they let us know that this report is out, that they could have let us know that the report was out in March. Certainly let us know that Ava was making these same presentations. At the time, it was the Y committee, because it was water and infrastructure. Then it became water, infrastructure, and transportation. And that also would have allowed the new members to have an understanding of what was going on. It would have allowed us to follow up, and we wouldn't be under the gun right now where it's already on its way to council. We would have had this time to go through it.